Hi, my name is Kathy Mellor, and I'm going to share with you today some of the reasons why I get excited about helping people become better writing coaches. And this introductory session is to help you kind of get an idea of where I'm coming from and some of the reasons that I love helping people with this skill, and also to understand what it is that this course is including and what is expected of you. So in the first place, I want you to know that I'm passionate about words and everything related to them. I think it's really important that we're able to express ourselves in ways that move minds and hearts. And I am anxiously engaged all the time in growing leaders and helping them to learn how to think and learn how to do, the best possible things with their talents to impact the world. And part of that process, part of that learning how to think, and part of that process of knowing how you can impact other people is done through writing. And in the course of dozens of years, actually now, I've mentored a lot of writing, hundreds of scholar papers and blog posts and even a few books. So I've got lots and lots of experience both as an editor and as a coach, and I am just excited to share those things with you that I've learned that can make it easier for you to effectively coach those who you mentor. So why should we be emphasizing writing in the first place? There's so many other things, so many other areas, disciplines that we could be freaking out about, that we could be spending our mental energy and time on. And I'm not saying that calculus is something you shouldn't learn, but I don't know it and I've gotten through life okay. So if it's in your mission, learn calculus. I'm just saying, it's like, why emphasize writing? And this is kind of my list. This is the reason why I focus on it in my own mentoring and in my own children's education. We want to be able to have impact. We want to be able to learn how to think. It makes you more versatile in career choices and more successful in academic environments. And I think it's essential for entrepreneurial success. So we're going to go through a couple of those concepts and just talk about them. So having impact, we want to be able to make a difference in the world. And much of what we are impacted by is writing. And even if it's done in a meme, right? Even if it's floating across our social media, that meme is written in such a way as to make you think or make you laugh or make you feel something. And so how do we become a master of words that we can, be able to do that? Blog posts are tremendously impactful in our world today. So, we have to have the skill in order to have the kind of impact that we want and should have. And as I mentioned, entrepreneurial ventures, they require us to be able to identify what it is that we offer and then articulate that in a variety of different ways and also in a variety of different audiences. So we want to be able to do that effectively. And even if you don't have an entrepreneurial bent, you may want to have impact in a particular field of work, and that is more likely to happen if you know how to write, because all professions have some kind of correspondence, even if it's just email, right? To be able to effectively express yourself and to impact other people. So success in academics and career, I have a master's degree and I have written my fair share of papers. I've written my fair share of 5-paragraph essays. And it doesn't matter what class you're taking. They include in those classes, some kind of written project or research paper or whatever. Every subject includes writing. So we want to be effective in those environments if if our path is going to lead us to higher education. And I can tell you that if you have good foundational skills, pumping out those papers is a lot easier. And then once you get into your career field, every field has journals and professional associations that do in fact rely on written communication and written discussion, quite honestly. So we're going to all be more successful. Our children are going to be more successful if in their chosen field, if they have this skill in their back corner. So here's my deal. This is my touchstone quote. This is what I kind of go back to every once in a while and say, am I doing this? Is the thing that I'm spending my time on helping with this? And, you know, Samuel Adams said it does not take a majority to prevail, but a tireless, irate minority keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men. And I think that that sort of encompasses what it means to be on the right side of freedom, right? To be working on the right side of freedom. You have to not only have the ability to see when there's bondage, okay, that's one thing, but you have to be able to say, wait, not only do I have the solution, but I can inspire you to want to be part of that solution. And I think that we have a responsibility to raise a generation that can do that, and to give them the desire to be a good writer and also the skills. So one thing you want to know about me is I believe that rhetoric is amoral. Okay, some people view it as a bad thing because, of course, it is often used, you know, in a bad way. But rhetoric is basically the ability to persuade. Okay, so it doesn't have to be used in some manipulative, forcing kind of way at all. And in fact, I would suggest that it is used all the time. The real question is whether or not we're aware that it's being used, and if are we free, because we can identify what it is that is making us change our mind or change the way we feel, which then usually ends up changing our mind. So we will be less gullible if we learn how to recognize what it is, and we'll be more effective if we know how to use rhetoric. So I talked about how writing could help us learn how to think, and I want to just focus on that for a second because it has a unique capacity for teaching thinking. So normally, discussion happens in real time, and it's a valuable component also in education. But writing allows us to sit back, process what we think, and really come up with something that is thought-provoking and polished and all that kind of thing. And in that process, we learn a lot about what it is that we do think, and also sometimes, hopefully, we're realizing when we need to work a little bit harder on providing proofs and better rhetoric, better persuasion, so that we can be more effective. So that process, that iterative process of doing it again and again, revising, rewriting, that is fabulous for organizing your thoughts, which makes you a better thinker. It also can be used in education through what are called forced response topics. This is where you give a prompt, or usually it's often a question, to a student or to a group of students and say, you know, we want to hear your thoughts, or I want to hear your thoughts on this particular topic. And what that does is it creates an environment where we have to think about something that we may not ever think about. And it gives us a chance to open our mind to new possibilities, to come to conclusions, and the kind of process that's happening in that is actually thinking. And so I love writing for that. And then eventually it comes to the point where we have to prove what we're saying. We can't just, have an opinion about something and expect other people to agree with us just because it's our strongly held opinion. So how do we do that? We use the various ways of proving our point to show that we're not just coming from a place of thinking that we know everything, being able to prove through these different kinds of proofs that I have listed on this slide. And then also, through all of this, we develop the ability to persuade people. I will tell you that I'm also a public speaking coach, and what I've seen is most effective is when I'm mentoring somebody in writing and in public speaking. I love mentoring writing speeches because they know that they automatically are going to have an audience for what they write. And those skills are like this. They help each other. If you get better at public speaking, you're going to be a better writer because you're going to know how to speak in a way that persuades people. So the other thing you need to know about me is my approach to writing. And I like to think of it as an organic approach because in this framework that I'm about to share with you, writing is seen as something that is going to naturally develop, in the right environment. And that makes it a lot less painful to teach because you're not forcing, forcing workbooks and all that kind of stuff onto people. So this is the foundation of it, the Lemmy writing cycle. And I'm going to briefly go through it because you'll have to understand it in order to, appreciate other things that I say within the course. The first is that we begin at the top of this cycle. We start with speaking. There is an understanding, like you don't even have to think about it, that you would expect a child to learn how to speak first before they picked up a pencil and wrote a brilliant sentence, right? That there has to be that foundation. But we don't always think about while we're teaching our children to speak and while they're growing their vocabulary and they're little, that they are becoming writers at that time. It was kind of an epiphany to me that process of learning how to speak was also part of their writing journey. And one thing that does for you if you have little kids is that it gives you permission to relax a little bit and to understand that this organic process of going around this cycle is very I guess the word that comes to mind is natural. I'm sounding like some kind of a health guru, but a natural organic process. And when we speak and when we hear them speak and when we respond to them, we are actually teaching them how to be a writer. The next phase of this is they start to narrate. They give you a rundown of their day, what they did at their friend's house, how things went on the playground, whatever it is. They narrate what happens. They're reporting back, or maybe they narrate back a story that they have heard, a movie that they have seen. And it can be really hard to be the listener, to these narrations, because you kind of feel like, yeah, I saw that movie too, or yeah, I watched that, play date happen with your friend. But it's really important because they're starting to figure out, beginning, middle, and end. They're starting to, organize their brains with sequencing and that kind of a thing. And then they move into creation. They start to create their own stories. They start to find ways in which they are coming up with their own play, their own role play, or maybe they're starting to tell their own stories or having their own outcomes to stories that they know. You'll see a lot of the same elements in the movies and things that they know in their own stories, but they're creating their own and coming to a place of creation, and that's a lot of fun. And then the next step on this cycle is journaling. And if you think about it, this is kind of like narrating. A lot of times when we journal something, we are sort of saying what happened, right? We're making a record of what happened. So they're going back to that narrating where they've already worked on those skills, but now they're writing it. And that can be a great first step to get them into the physical act of writing. So before that, those previous three parts of the cycle have been done all orally, and it's important that we recognize that is still working towards being a great writer. Okay, so in this journaling phase, you can also teach other forms. I like to teach my children, I like to teach them different forms of poetry, like an acrostic poem is a form of poetry, so that they can have more empowerment, more reason to look for beautiful words. All this time we're working on memorization in my home and having them gather up beautiful words and really be strengthened in their love of language. Moving into the second half of the cycle is more into the 12 and up phase, what we call scholar phase, and opinion papers come in here. This is where they're given a forced response. What do you think about somebody owning a gun, and they may never have thought about it before. They may never have had that conversation in their home. I mean, it's, it's like ideas that maybe they haven't considered before. And it's okay at this phase for the sentences, for the paper to be just a couple of sentences. And it's also okay if it's nothing but opinion, because they are opinion papers. We're trying to empower them to believe that their opinion is worth hearing. And so we'll talk about how to coach in this series of webinars, but at this point, we're just looking at the praising of their ability to not only assess their opinion, decide what it is, but to get it down on paper. And then we move into persuasive essays. This is more along the lines of having an opinion, but then proving it with those different points of logic and reasoning and historicity and those kinds of things. And finally, we go to research. And in research, that's where we're going deep into a subject and maybe doing some topic reading, where we're reading multiple things on the same topic and researching that topic and coming to our own synthesis, our own ideas on the subject. Now, this writing cycle, I've explained it very briefly. It works. I've seen it over and over again, and it's a much less tear-filled, frustrated experience of teaching writing than to do it through your average writing curriculum. So I'm going to talk about the types of coaching just very briefly, but these are the kinds of things that we're going to talk about in Unleashing Your Pen. The ones that are in green are the ones that we teach at LEMI. I'm also a LEMI trainer, and they are fabulous, but I've added the other ones that I think are also important and are part of the process of coaching a great writer. Pre-writing, structure, thesis, proofs, flow, content, grammar, punctuation, target audience, style, word usage, logic, and rhetoric. Okay, so they're not in an exact order, but I think that as we are working with scholars, and I'm talking again about 12 and up, these are the sorts of things that we need to teach them, not all at once, but as we do iterative coaching with them, and having an idea of what those different kinds of coaching are can be very helpful in that process. So a person's voice, okay, whether it's this kid on the microphone or it's somebody writing a paper, their voice is made up of two parts, as I see it. The first part is what they know. Okay, so we have to know something, we have to have something to say in order to express ourselves. And then the second part is how they deliver it. And your job as a coach is to help them, your students, your children, to have a belief that their voice is worth hearing, and to help them really discover what that unique voice is. And excuse me. In writing, voice is composed of all those elements that we talked about on the previous slide. But again, our job is to help him or her discover, evaluate, and enhance it. Okay, so it's a process, and it works best if you can do it over a long period of time. Depending on the age, you really can help somebody develop their voice, in a school year. It's something that can be done if you are coaching them and they are receptive to the coaching, which of course is always the case with mentoring. So one thing that I want to emphasize in scholar phase writing is that that writing cycle that I described is an upward spiral. It's not something they go through one time. And so when a brand new form of writing comes around, they've never done it before, if you want to start back at speaking, you want to talk about it and go through those different steps again, some of them will go by in a sentence or two, but some of them need to be explored. So it's like that circle is an upward spiral, and each time they're getting better and faster at it. And then some forms of writing, like a legal brief, is intensely difficult and takes a little bit of of time and coaching and patience on the part of both the mentor the and the student. So as far as your mentor skills, and yes, I know it's not really not really one word, but for me it is one word. Each of the phases of Scholar require different mentor skills because they're at a different place. And, we'll talk about that, but basically just know that you can't treat a 12-year-old as though they're 17 because they don't have the same capacity. Their brains aren't actually, as developed. They haven't developed their critical thinking skills. You have to adjust the things that I say in this course by what phase that they're in. And of course, each mentee requires individualization. I can't even, begin to tell you how many adults that I have mentored in writing who I really had to, take all the way back to just believing that they had something that was worth hearing. And so that's okay. You help people where they are and you individualize to what they need, and that's why it's mentoring and individualized. So we have a lot of skills to help people develop, and obviously we're also increasing and developing ours, and I hope that you'll join me so that we can work on that together. But I want to focus for just a second on this inspiring people to want to be better at something. Now, in this case, we're talking about writing, but this can be used for a multitude of other mentoring situations. And it's something that I developed that I call the breathing life continuum. So inspire comes from the Latin root inspirar, which means to breathe life into another, okay? Which I think is a very inspiring definition of inspire. Now what I did was I got all of these words that have the same SPIR in the root of the word and thought about how we mentor, okay? So obviously we want to be over here on this left side. We want to be inspired. We want to be breathing life into our mentee. We want them to want what we have to share. But sometimes we're at respire, okay? So respiration, think about that word. You're breathing in, you're breathing out, you're breathing in, you're breathing out. It's super important because, like life goes on when we're respiring, right? But sometimes, it's necessary to just keep life going. And so what that kind of looks like to me is maybe when we're going, can you just do that assignment and let's get it done because it's due. Okay, so it's true. You're not being mean, but you're just, kind of going, okay, come on, next, right? Okay, inspire, we've got them excited to do it. Respire is we're saying like, it's time to do the assignment, let's keep it up. Okay, now suspire may not be a word that you're familiar with, but basically means a long sigh or groan. Okay, because I'm breathing when I do that, right? It's part of this continuum. And sometimes that is that discouraging mentor interaction. And you've had them because we all have, where you have given the wrong set of advice at the wrong time, or you lost your temper or whatever, and you actually made it worse, right? And it's easy to do. It happens because we're human. And expire is your last breath. That's what that is, expire. Now, I don't know if you know anybody who has been expired on the topic of writing, but there are people who struggle so much with writing that they don't want to do it at all. They have been expired somewhere along the line. Somebody or some set of circumstances has told them that what they have isn't worth hearing. And, that breaks my heart. My mission is to help people find their voice and to know that their message needs to be heard and to give them the skills to accomplish it. So when people are expired on any topic whatsoever, but certainly on writing, it is a little bit heartbreaking to me. So we don't want to be that mentor. This breathing life continuum could be a tool for you to evaluate yourself. Okay, I just had this interaction with my scholar, with my kid. Where was I? did I inspire? Did I respire? Did I aspire? Did I expire? And quite honestly, it can be used for any interaction that you have with anybody about pretty much any topic. So I hope that tool is useful to you. I think about it often, and it helps me to evaluate. Self-evaluation is a key to improvement, and so it helps me to self-evaluate how I'm doing in my mentoring. So here's where you come in. Decisions. We have this course available for you. I'd love for you to join me, and here's some details about it. So we are going to focus on the coaching environment. It's one that I don't see a lot of people teaching it, how to be a better coach, and we want to work, coach, inspire writing skills, and also keep working at it when it's hard. In this course, you're going to see different methods for evaluating papers. Okay, there's different components to it. You don't have to do it a specific way, but here are some components that can help you to be a better coach. We're also going to get specific about the components of writing. I'm going to give you, what the common mistakes I see, the places where people struggle. I'm going to show you, the things that you never learned in school. How do I know this? Because I edit so many people's writing, but I know that there's common patterns of errors, common patterns of things that people don't understand. And I'm going to share those with you so that you can get better at your own writing and also get better at your coaching. And there's no place in this whole experience for you to say, yeah, I'm not a good writer, I can't be a good coach, because you're going to grow with your process of doing that. So in this course, you're going to have the opportunity to experience the show, do, and tell of writing coaching, because you're going to write papers and be coached by your peers. You're also going to coach your peers. And I'm going to coach one of your papers also, so you'll be coached by me. And then in addition to that, I was sharing with you some experiences from past coaching students that I've had. In every session, there will be time at the end for questions and answers. So if there's anything that you don't understand about the things that we've talked about, I'm more than happy to answer those for you. And I'm more than happy to give you resources, to answer your questions if I don't know what the answer is. So we're going to work together on becoming better at this thing. So here's some just information about taking the class. The sessions are between an hour and 2 hours, just sort of depends on discussion and questions that happen. And you'll be writing one paper each week. You'll also be coaching one paper each week. So, make sure you allow for, I would say an hour for writing the paper and maybe half an hour for coaching. Not that you can't spend longer on both, but I know everybody's busy. I don't want you to, think that you have to spend 4 hours on your paper. That's really actually not necessary. We can learn and be reasonable at the same time. We're going to be using Google Docs for sharing our papers and Google Sheets. If you've already signed up, I've sent you a link to be able to access that document where we'll be keeping track of coaching assignments, and that's going to be necessary to be able to access that. I'd like to encourage you to attend live, because then you can ask questions and be part of the discussion. And that, I realize that not everybody's life, allows for them to make every session live. So the sessions will be recorded as well. And really, I can't even begin to tell you how much this last bullet is true. The success that you have will be equally dependent upon how much you bring to the class. Not only your willingness to learn, of course, like any class, but also your willingness to be vulnerable. Writing is a very vulnerable experience where you share your thoughts, and to be vulnerable enough to be coached and humble enough to receive the coaching, and then also to turn around and do that for somebody else. You'll grow a lot, but if you don't do the assignments, then the other person doesn't get coached, and then you also won't have that growth that you intend to have by joining us. Now, If you haven't registered yet, you can go to unleashingyourvoice.com. I have a Unleashing Your Pen tab on there. You can also just Venmo me the money. That's my Venmo name, which is Kathy hyphen Mellor, and that works great. So we can do it either way. The cost is $75 for 3 sessions, and that includes that coaching of the paper by me. And really, I would love for the opportunity to work with you. It would be fabulous to have that opportunity. And in this last slide, I'm going to share with you your assignment, should you choose to accept it. Okay, so this is the first writing assignment. Describe your educational journey as a vehicle. What kind of vehicle is it and why? Consider adding examples from your life and description of the journey. So I love these papers. I get to know you right off the bat. I read every single paper, even though I don't coach every single paper. I read them all, and this gives me an opportunity to see into your life, your education, the kinds of things that worked well for you and the kinds of things that didn't. So I look forward to working with you and having you join me for the 3 webinar sessions.